They say the Marriott resort in Hawaii is paradise, but no one tells you about the part that isn't on the brochures, the part that's been buried under silence, threats, and blood. From the outside, it's all luxury and perfection. Sun-kissed beaches, glittering pools, and the soft lull of the ocean just steps away. But deep beneath its polished surface, something is terribly wrong. And if you don't follow the 6 strange rules they give you on your first night, you'll never see the sunrise again. I work the night shift here, and if you're wondering why someone would agree to stay overnight in this place, let's just say the answer will make your skin crawl. But you'll have to wait until the very end of this story to understand why I can't leave, no matter how much I want to. Until then, remember one thing. This resort doesn't want you to survive the night. My first night began like any other job. A smiling manager, a bunch of paperwork, a stiff uniform, and a heavy set of keys. I had just moved to the Big Island, desperate for a paycheck, and when I got the call that the Marriott was hiring a night shift concierge, I jumped on it. But no one warned me about the rules. Not until the elevator doors closed behind me, sealing me in the dark belly of the resort. That's when the radio crackled in my pocket. It wasn't plugged in. I hadn't even turned it on. Still, a voice whispered through the static. "Turn around." I spun, heart pounding. No one there. Just the reflection of myself in the elevator mirror, except my reflection wasn't moving. I stared. It stared back. Then it smiled, wide and toothy. I didn't. I dropped the radio, bolted out as the doors slid open, and nearly slammed into the old man waiting in the hallway. "You the new guy?" he rasped. "You must be. You're still breathing." His name was Hector, night cleaner, 70s. Face wrinkled like dry lava rock, eyes sunken but alert, like he hadn't slept in decades but had seen things most men wouldn't survive. "You didn't read the rules?" he asked, pulling out a crumpled sheet of paper from his breast pocket. "Nobody ever does. They always learn the hard way." He shoved the paper into my hand. The ink was smeared, but the title was clear. 6 Strange Rules to Survive the Night Shift at the Marriott Resort in Hawaii. Rule 1. If you hear someone knocking on your door after 12:13 a.m., do not open it, no matter how friendly they sound. That is not a guest. That is what's left of the last night's staff. Rule 2. At exactly 3 a.m., go to room 409 and knock twice, no more, no less, then leave immediately. If you hear a voice say, "Come in," ignore it. If you hear your own voice from inside, run and don't look back. Rule 3. If you pass the infinity pool and see a woman standing in the water, don't talk to her. Don't wave. Don't acknowledge her. She drowned here in 1998. She's been waiting ever since for someone to join her. Rule 4. At 4:44 a.m., the lobby phones will ring all at once. Do not answer. Let them ring. If you do pick one up, you must not speak. Just listen. You'll hear something you were never meant to know. And once you hear it, it will never stop whispering. Rule 5. Avoid the 7th floor. There is no 7th floor on the elevator panel, but it still exists. If you somehow end up there, close your eyes, hold your breath, and don't move. No matter what you feel touching you, it'll go away. If it knows you're awake, it won't. Rule 6. Clock out by sunrise, no matter what happens. If you're even 1 second late, you stay. The resort decides who leaves, not you. I laughed nervously, waiting for Hector to crack a smile. He didn't. "These are jokes, right?" I asked. "No. They're warnings." He turned and walked away, mop squeaking along the polished marble floors. I looked down at the list again. It felt cold, like the paper had been frozen. The first few hours were quiet. Too quiet. No music, no late-night guests, no humming vending machines. Just the sound of waves crashing far in the distance, muffled by thick glass. I wandered the halls, flashlight in hand, checking rooms, restocking carts, making sure the elevators still worked. And then, at exactly 12:13 a.m., someone knocked on the door of the service office I was sitting in. 3 slow knocks. I froze. It was too precise to be an accident. Then came the voice. "Hey man, forgot my wallet. You still in there? Can you let me in real quick?" It was casual, polite, a little anxious, but I hadn't seen a single guest in the hallway. I crept to the peephole. No one was there. Another knock. Slower this time. "Come on, I saw you go in. Just open up, man." My hand reached for the handle. Then I remembered Rule 1. I stepped back, heart racing. The knocking stopped. Silence. But then, from the other side of the door, I heard something dragging, like fingernails down wood. A low, breathy whisper slithered through the crack under the door. "You're not gonna last here." I backed away until my calves hit the desk. I grabbed the sheet and reread the rules again, now sweating. 1. Don't open the door. 2. Knock on room 409 at 3 a.m. 3. Don't talk to the woman in the pool. 4. Don't answer the lobby phones at 4:44 a.m. 5. Avoid the 7th floor. 6. Clock out by sunrise, no matter what. My watch read 12:16. I still had nearly 6 hours left. I stepped out of the office. The hallway lights flickered once, then went dim. I didn't know where Hector had gone. I didn't even know if I was truly alone anymore. But something in the air shifted after that knock, like the hotel had noticed me, and it was waiting. I could feel it. Like the air itself had thickened around my skin, clinging to every inch of me with invisible fingers. Every step I took down the dark hallway echoed far too loudly, like the building was listening, memorizing the sound of my fear. The lights continued to flicker, on and off, humming, buzzing, dying out. The elevator at the far end of the hall opened by itself with a loud ding, though no one had pressed the button. I stood frozen as the doors slowly parted, revealing nothing but a dim interior. Empty. But the moment I turned to walk away, I heard it. A soft exhale, like breath hitting cold glass. From inside the elevator. I didn't go near it. I couldn't. Rule 5 pounded in my head. Avoid the 7th floor. But what scared me most wasn't that the elevator had opened on its own. It was that the little LED screen above it now read 7. There is no 7th floor. I backed away slowly, not taking my eyes off the elevator until the doors slid shut with a sharp hiss. The LED screen flickered. 7, 6, 5, 4. It was descending now, heading to the lobby. I didn't wait to see who or what might step out when it arrived. I turned and bolted the other way, my footsteps pounding down the corridor, heart racing so fast I thought it might explode. At the end of the hallway, I reached a massive glass window that overlooked the resort's famous infinity pool. But the second I looked down, I froze. There she was, Rule 3, the woman in the water. She stood waist deep in the pool, not moving, her long black hair slick and flat against her face, her head tilted slightly as if she were listening. Even from this distance I could see her eyes, wide, empty, unblinking, and worst of all, locked on mine. I stumbled backward, ducked out of view. I hadn't waved, I hadn't spoken, I hadn't acknowledged her. But the way she was staring, like she had been waiting for me, made my blood feel like ice water. I pressed my back against the wall, hand over my mouth, trying not to breathe too loudly. For a few long seconds there was only silence. Then, a slow, deliberate knock tapped against the glass window beside me. I didn't look. I couldn't. The knock came again. 2 fingers, maybe. Light. Patient. Waiting. I backed away and slipped into a service corridor, slamming the door behind me. My watch read 2:52 a.m. The next rule. Room 409. Rule 2. At exactly 3 a.m., go to room 409 and knock twice. No more, no less. Then leave immediately. I had never been more terrified in my life, but for some reason, some twisted instinct, I wanted to obey the rule. As if something inside me knew that breaking it would be worse than anything I'd already seen. The hallway leading to the 400s was eerily quiet. No vents, no fans. Even the air here was dead. I moved quickly, counting room numbers. 406, 407, 408, 409. I checked my watch again. 2:59. I stood in front of the door, every muscle in my body tensed, listening for any sound on the other side. Nothing. I lifted my hand. 3 a.m. Knock, knock. I stepped back instantly, heart jackhammering in my chest. The door didn't move, no voice called out, nothing stirred. But just as I turned to leave, I heard it. Come in. It was soft, calm, polite. I stopped. Every instinct in my body screamed to run. I knew what the rule said. Ignore the voice. But then it spoke again, and this time, it was my voice. Come in, it repeated. I've been waiting for you. I didn't turn around. I didn't look at the door again. I ran. I ran so hard and fast my lungs burned. Behind me I heard the doorknob jiggle once. Then, a quiet, deliberate creak as the door swung open on its own. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I dashed down the stairwell, skipping steps, nearly falling, hands scraping the handrails. I didn't stop running until I was back in the lobby, gasping for air, soaked in cold sweat. The front desk lights had gone out. The chandeliers above me trembled faintly like something heavy had just walked across the ceiling. My watch now read 3:23 a.m. I collapsed behind the front desk, trying to catch my breath. That's when the phone rang, and then the one beside it, and the one beside that. All of them. Rule 4. 4:44 a.m. Do not answer the phones. But it wasn't 4:44 yet, not even close. The rules were being bent, or worse, broken. The ringing kept going, shrieking through the empty lobby like a chorus of screams. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely cover my ears. But then, from the far left phone, something answered itself. Click. No one picked it up, but I heard a voice on the line anyway. Faint, distant, almost like it was underwater. Do you want to know where the missing guests went? It said softly. We can show you. I stood up slowly, feeling the pressure in the air thicken around me again. The front doors of the lobby were wide open now. The night air outside had vanished. In its place was a thick, swirling mist, rolling across the marble floors like a tide of fog. I was trapped inside the hotel's lungs, breathing it in, becoming part of it. I ran back toward the service wing, taking the long way to avoid the pool. As I rounded the corner past the staff lockers, I finally spotted Hector again. Or at least, I think it was Hector. He was standing perfectly still in the hallway, mop in hand, staring at the wall. The second I called his name, his head twisted, slow, unnatural, bone-cracking slow, until he was looking directly at me. But his eyes weren't the same, they were jet black. He didn't blink, didn't speak, just smiled, too wide, and pointed up. Behind him, the service elevator door stood wide open, the number above it flickering. 7, 7, 7, like it was taunting me, daring me to step in. The air around the elevator was cold, much colder than the rest of the hallway. Not just chilled, but dead cold. My breath came out in thick, ghostly clouds, and every hair on my body stood on end. Hector was still pointing at the open elevator, the same twisted grin carved into his face. His eyes weren't blinking, not once. I took one step back and he moved with me, not walked, just appeared a foot closer, still pointing. My heart pounded so loud I was sure it would give me away. I turned and ran in the opposite direction, shoving open the stairwell door and sprinting down 3 flights until I burst into the linen storage room, slamming the door behind me. My back hit the wall, and I slid to the floor, trembling. I didn't know where I was going anymore. I just knew I had to stay away from the elevators, especially that one, especially now. I checked the time. 4:32 a.m., 12 minutes until Rule 4. The lobby phones were going to ring soon, and I had no idea where to go. I crept out of the linen room, my footsteps barely making a sound on the tile floor. The hallway ahead was pitch black. The emergency lights had gone out. Everything felt off, like the walls themselves had shifted when I wasn't looking. I passed by a security mirror mounted on the ceiling. But the person I saw walking beneath it wasn't me. He was wearing my uniform, my name tag, but he was grinning. And I wasn't. I didn't stop. I didn't look again. I just kept going until the hallway opened up into the side entrance to the lobby. From where I stood, I could see the front desk. The lobby looked exactly the same as it did earlier, but wrong, too clean, too perfect, like it had been wiped down to cover something up. And then the phones started ringing, all of them. The sound wasn't sharp anymore. It was low, dull, like the ringing was coming from underwater. I ducked behind the wall, crouched low. The phones just kept ringing, nonstop. The lights in the lobby began to dim with each ring, one by one, until only a single light remained above the front desk. Then the ringing stopped. Silence. I held my breath, not daring to move. My watch ticked, 4:44 a.m., and then the front desk phone picked itself up. I watched, frozen in place, as the receiver slowly rose from the cradle, hovering in the air as if held by invisible fingers. And then I heard the voice again, this time louder, clearer. "You're already too late." I backed away slowly, but the voice followed. "You listened, didn't you? You always do. You just had to know." Suddenly the silence shattered. A scream. From somewhere deep inside the hotel. It wasn't a normal scream. It was wet, gurgling, like someone was drowning and still trying to beg for help. I ran, through the lobby, down the back hall, past the kitchen. I didn't care where I ended up. I just needed to be anywhere else. I don't know how, but I ended up near the guest spa. I'd only been there once before during orientation. But now, the glass doors were shattered, and the inside was lit with this strange red glow, like someone had lit flares in the corners of the room. Steam poured out from within, thick and suffocating. I tried to turn away, and that's when I saw her again, the woman from the pool. But this time, she wasn't in the water. She was standing in the steam, arms hanging limp by her sides, her white gown soaked and clinging to her skin. Her hair was plastered across her face, but I could still see her eyes. They were leaking, dark, inky tears running down her cheeks like someone had carved holes in her soul, and she was staring directly at me. I turned and ran again, nearly slipping on the wet tiles, heart threatening to tear itself out of my chest. As I rounded the corner toward the main hallway, the lights above me all burst at once, one by one like dominoes. Glass shattered. Sparks rained down. I screamed and dove into a side room, the staff break room. I slammed the door and locked it, leaned against it, shaking. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. 4:58 a.m. I had just under an hour to survive. Then, something knocked on the door. Soft. 3 gentle taps. I knew what time it was. I knew the rule. It wasn't 12:13 a.m. It wasn't supposed to be happening. But whoever, or whatever, was on the other side didn't care about the schedule anymore. Another knock, louder this time. Then a voice. "Housekeeping," it said sweetly. I didn't move. The doorknob started turning slowly. Then faster. The lock held, barely. Then silence. I waited there in that room for what felt like hours, my breath shallow, my heart barely beating. Until finally I heard footsteps walking away, not fading, sliding, like someone was dragging their body down the hall. When I finally opened the door, the hallway was empty, except for a single housekeeping cart sitting at the end. And on top of it was my name tag. Freshly cleaned, pressed, polished, placed on a folded uniform I hadn't worn yet. I backed away slowly, hands trembling, until I reached the hallway leading toward the time clock. I could see it in the distance, the little red screen glowing faintly in the dark. 5:12 a.m. I had to make it to sunrise. I had to clock out. That was Rule 6, my only way out. But just as I stepped forward, the elevator at the end of the hallway dinged, and the door slid open. Inside, I saw nothing at first, just darkness. Then a foot stepped forward, bare, bloody, followed by another. Then a face emerged from the shadows. It was mine, but not alive. Its eyes were sunken and rotted, skin peeling. A grotesque grin spread across its face as it beckoned me forward with one hand, the other gripping my lost staff badge. The number above the elevator didn't say 7 this time. It just said, "Welcome back." The elevator's red digital text pulsed like a heartbeat, casting a sickly glow over the face that stared back at me. My face, only dead. Rotting. Grinning wider than any human mouth should. I stood frozen, unable to look away as it raised its decaying hand and pointed at me with one jerking, twitching finger, the same way Hector did. The elevator's interior grew darker, swallowing the creature in shadows, but that awful, mocking smile lingered in the dim light. I didn't move. I couldn't. Not until the elevator doors began to close. They slid shut without a sound, sealing the horror behind a sheet of polished steel. The moment they shut, the lights above me flickered violently, then went out. Complete darkness. For a second, all I could hear was my breathing. Sharp, unsteady. Then came the sound of something wet dragging across the floor. A slow, slithering pull, getting closer. Closer. I stumbled backward until my shoulder slammed into the wall. My hand fumbled for the emergency flashlight on my belt. Click. Nothing. Click. Click. Still dead. I cursed under my breath and took off running down the hallway, guided only by faint exit signs that barely glowed anymore. The dragging noise followed, echoing through the halls, sometimes in front of me, sometimes behind. And then, it stopped. I turned a corner too fast and nearly crashed into a tall, narrow door I hadn't noticed before. There was no number on it, just a rusted plaque that had been scratched so violently it was unreadable. But what chilled me to the bone wasn't the door. It was the smell. Rot, damp wood, and something burned. I backed away, and behind me I heard it again. Knock. 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 My eyes darted to my watch. 5:24 a.m. No, not 12:13 a.m. It didn't make sense. But the knocking kept coming. The voice that followed wasn't sweet anymore. It was raspy, cracked, hungry. Let me in, it's cold. I turned and ran again, not even sure where I was going. Every hallway twisted, bent, doubled back on itself. The resort was changing, morphing, like it was keeping me inside. I passed by windows that showed nothing but black outside. Not the beach, not the palm trees, just void. At one point, I ended up outside the ballroom, and that's when I heard the music. A slow waltz playing softly from behind the double doors. But there were no lights on in there, just the music, echoing like it had been playing for decades. Something about it pulled at me, made my legs move without permission. I reached for the handle, but then I remembered Rule 5. The 7th floor doesn't exist on the elevator panel. But what if this wasn't the ballroom anymore? I stepped back quickly, and the music stopped, like it knew I was no longer listening. I checked the time again. 5:38 a.m. Not much longer. I just had to survive. Then clock out. The hallway around me had gone silent again. Deathly quiet. Not even the buzz of a light bulb or the hum of the air conditioning. Just my own breathing and the heavy thud of my heartbeat. That's when I saw the stairwell, and that's when I saw her, the drowned woman, standing halfway up the stairs, soaking wet, head tilted sideways, neck bent at an impossible angle. Her eyes were cloudy, almost white, but they were locked on me. Her lips moved slowly. No sound came out, but I knew she was saying my name. I bolted down the opposite hall, and just as I did, I passed by a massive glass wall that overlooked the infinity pool. There it was. Calm. Perfect. The water looked like still glass, and she was in there too, standing in the exact center of the pool, water up to her waist. No ripples, no movement. She wasn't moving. Neither was the version I just saw on the stairs. I froze. There were two of her. I remembered Rule 3. Don't wave. Don't talk. Don't even acknowledge her. So I turned away quickly. But as I did, I saw something in the glass. Not my reflection. Hers. Behind me. Her hand reached up over my shoulder in the reflection, but when I turned in real life, nothing was there. I didn't wait. I ran full speed toward the time clock room. Everything else was gone now. The hotel, the halls, it all blurred together. Lights flickered as I passed. Doors creaked open without anyone touching them. I heard a baby crying in one room, laughter in another, then screaming, my screaming, but from somewhere deep, echoing from vents overhead. 5:49 a.m. The time clock was just ahead, but standing in front of it was me. Again. Still rotting. Still grinning. But this time, it spoke. "You're not going to make it," it said in a voice like crumpled metal. I stepped back, but there was nowhere left to go. "You broke the rules," it hissed. "You saw her. You listened. You looked." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my staff card. It laughed. "Go on," it said. "Clock out." I stepped forward. The thing didn't move. I raised the card to the scanner. Beep. The light turned green. I reached for the button. But just as my finger touched it, the lights shut off completely. Pitch black. I felt hands on my shoulders, on my face, on my back. Too many fingers. Too many hands. I couldn't scream. Something cold slid over my mouth. Something sharp pressed into my chest. 5:58 a.m. My thoughts were spinning. Clock out by sunrise. I had to. I jammed my hand forward, blindly slamming the button again and again, until I felt a sharp click. Then silence. The hands vanished, the lights came back on, and I was alone. The clock on the wall read 6 a.m. I had made it. I was still breathing, but I knew I hadn't escaped. Because on the time clock screen, under the words "Clock out successful," a new message appeared. "See you tonight." I stared at the words on the glowing time clock screen. "See you tonight." My legs gave out beneath me. I collapsed onto the cold tile floor, my breath coming out in short, panicked bursts. It was over, for now, but I felt it in my bones. This place wasn't done with me, not even close. The message wasn't a warning. It was a promise. The resort had marked me. I should have quit. I should have packed a bag, left everything behind, and run as far from this island as I could. But I didn't. Because somewhere deep down I knew the truth. You don't leave the Marriott resort. You clock out, or you stay forever. I made it back to my room just as the sun started to bleed over the edge of the ocean. Everything looked normal in the daylight. Clean hallways, polished floors, birds chirping in the palm trees outside. But it was all a lie. Just a thin layer of paint over something rotten underneath. I showered with the door open. I couldn't stand the idea of being closed in. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw them again. The hands, the face in the elevator, the drowned woman's twisted smile. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. My body refused to relax. Every creak in the walls made me jump. The hours dragged on like wet cement, and before I knew it, the sun dipped low again. Shadows stretched long across the resort, and the front desk called to remind me I was due to clock in at midnight. The voice on the line was cheerful, but there was something off about it, like someone pretending to be human. It thanked me for returning for another night shift, and then the line went dead. No goodbye, no click. Just silence. I wanted to scream. Midnight came faster than I expected. I stood at the mirror, tying my lanyard, trying to convince myself I was brave enough to do this again. My hands shook the whole time. I clipped on the radio, checked the emergency flashlight, and stepped out into the hallway. My shift began like last time. Empty lobby, quiet hallways. But now I knew what was hiding in them, and that made it worse. 12:13 a.m. I stood outside a guest's room, delivering fresh towels, when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. It wasn't the door I stood in front of. It came from my room, down the hallway. 3 sharp knocks, echoing with a strange, wet thud. I looked at my watch. 12:13 a.m. Exactly. Rule 1. Don't open the door. Don't acknowledge them. But I wasn't in the room. What happens when you're not there to ignore it? The knocking grew louder, more impatient. Then came the voice. It wasn't the same one as before. This one was deeper. Male. Choked with gurgling static. I left something for you. Inside. The hallway temperature dropped so fast I could see my breath. The lights flickered above my head. Something moved past the end of the corridor. A black silhouette. Slumped, dragging one leg behind it. I turned away. I couldn't help it. But in the glass of a nearby window, I saw the door to my room creak open. All on its own. No, no, no. I backed away and my radio crackled loudly on my shoulder. Don't look, it whispered. Not in my voice. Not in anyone's voice I knew. Just a distorted warning, like it came from underwater. Then silence. 1:47 a.m. I was near the staff laundry wing when I found Hector's clipboard, lying on the floor. The paper was soaked in something dark. Smelled like rust and seawater. There was a note written across the back of one page, scratched in thick, shaky ink. It knows who you are now. It's going to show you everything. I didn't understand what it meant. Not yet. But I kept moving. And I kept the note. 2:59 a.m. I stood outside room 409. The hallway was unnaturally quiet. Not just silent, but like all sound had been sucked out of the air. My heart pounded so loud I swore the walls could hear it. Rule 2. Knock twice. No more. No less. I raised my hand and gently rapped twice on the old wooden door. Knock, knock. Then I turned and walked away immediately, not waiting for anything. But I didn't make it 10 steps before I heard it. Come in. I ignored it. But then I heard something worse. My own voice muffled behind the door. Hey, it's me, let me out. I broke into a run. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. My feet pounded against the floor, but it felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. My voice called again from behind the door, this time louder. I'm still in here. Let me out, please. I didn't look back. Didn't stop. I knew the moment I looked, it would already be too late. I finally rounded the corner and slammed into the wall, gasping. 3:03 a.m. Safe. For now. But something followed me. I could feel it, like invisible fingers brushing against my back. The lights overhead buzzed loudly and went out. A single red emergency bulb flickered on, and at the far end of the hallway, a shadow stood, tall, lean, arms too long, head cocked, watching. It didn't move, not yet. But I knew it would. It always did. 4 a.m., still alive, but barely holding on. My mind felt frayed at the edges. Every door whispered as I passed. Not with words, just breath. Constant breath. Like the resort itself was alive and exhaling all around me. And then, 4:44 a.m., every phone in the lobby began to ring at once. All of them. Old rotary phones, desk phones, wall phones. They rang in perfect unison. Rule 4. Don't answer. Just let them ring. I backed away slowly, hands shaking, eyes wide. But one of them, the phone at the concierge desk, fell off the hook by itself. The receiver dangled in the air, swaying side to side. A low whisper leaked from the speaker. I wasn't even holding it, but I could hear it. My name. Over and over. Then it said something else. 3 words I will never forget. Words that made my knees buckle. She knows you. Then all the phones stopped at once, and the lights went out. I couldn't see anything. Just pitch black, thick like ink, like it was alive and pressing in on all sides. My breathing was too loud. My heart felt like it would explode through my ribs. I stood frozen behind the concierge desk, surrounded by darkness, haunted by those 3 words. She knows you. I didn't ask who she was. I didn't need to. Somewhere deep inside, I already knew, and that terrified me more than anything else. A sudden sound broke through the black, elevator doors sliding open. That low metallic ding echoed through the air like a death bell. I couldn't see it, but I knew the elevator was open now, waiting, beckoning. I pressed myself flat against the wall, praying it wasn't meant for me. Then came the footsteps, wet, bare, soft slaps against tile, coming toward the lobby, from the poolside. No. Rule 3. Don't look. Don't speak. Don't acknowledge her. But how was she in the building? She'd never left the water before. I heard her breathing now. Shaky. Ragged. Like water was caught in her throat. And then I saw her. Not directly, but in the reflection of the blacked-out computer monitor on the desk. She stood just a few feet away. Her skin was pale gray, bloated. Her hair hung in soaked, tangled ropes, dripping salt water onto the floor. She wore a torn white swimsuit, stuck to her body like wet tissue paper. Her arms hung at her sides, limp, like they didn't belong to her anymore. Her head was tilted, eyes wide, cloudy, locked on me. She opened her mouth, and a stream of water poured out. I bit down hard on my tongue, fighting the scream clawing its way up my throat. Her lips moved, but no sound came out, not at first. Then the words bubbled up, gurgled through seawater. You saw me. No, I didn't. Not really, not directly. I kept telling myself that. She took a step forward. Water sloshed around her ankles, ankles that were now leaving trails behind her, murky puddles forming footprints that didn't dry. She was coming closer. You saw me, she repeated louder, and this time, I felt the words press into my skull, like they weren't meant to be heard with ears, but absorbed through fear. I dropped to my knees behind the desk, covered my head, squeezed my eyes shut, and whispered the rule over and over like a prayer. Don't talk to her. Don't wave. Don't acknowledge her. The footsteps stopped. Silence. But silence in this place was never safe. I counted 10 seconds, 20, 30. Still nothing. I slowly lifted my head, cracking one eye open. She was gone. Just puddles remained, and a trail, leading away from the desk, toward the elevators. I staggered to my feet and glanced at the panel on the wall. Every floor was lit up, even the 7th. My blood ran cold. There is no 7th floor. It doesn't exist. Not officially. But the elevator had stopped there, door open, waiting. I wasn't even near it, but I could feel it calling to me, pulling at me. My feet moved before my brain could stop them. No, no, don't. Rule 5, avoid the 7th floor. I tried to back away, but it was too late. The elevator dinged, and my radio crackled. The voice that came through wasn't human. It was twisted, wet, and wrong. Come up. I screamed and ripped the radio from my shoulder. Then I turned and ran. Not to the lobby, not to the desk, but to the stairwell. I pushed the door open and started climbing. Floor after floor. 2, 3, 4. I didn't care where I was going. I just knew I couldn't let the elevator take me. But somewhere between the 6th and 8th floor, the staircase changed. The air grew thick. The walls stretched farther apart. The lights flickered and buzzed, then turned red. I didn't remember a red-lit floor. There shouldn't be a red-lit floor. And then I saw the number carved into the wall with fingernails. 7. No. 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 I turned to go back down. But the door I came through was gone. Just smooth wall. The door to the 7th floor creaked open behind me, slow and aching. I shut my eyes, held my breath, and dropped to the floor. I didn't move. I didn't twitch. Even when something wet brushed my face, even when long fingers pressed against my back, even when something leaned close enough to whisper in my ear, "You're awake." My lungs screamed for air, but I didn't breathe. Not yet. The whisper came again. "You're not supposed to be here." I felt a tongue, cold and slimy, drag across my cheek. I was going to die, I knew it. But then, a loud bell rang, sharp, piercing. My watch vibrated violently against my wrist. 5:58 a.m. I gasped. Too loud, too soon, too late. The whispers stopped, the air shifted, and the thing touching me vanished. The lights went out again, and this time, when they came back on, I was lying in the main lobby, flat on my back, soaked in pool water, shaking. The concierge desk was gone, the phones were gone, even the front doors were gone, just black, endless space beyond the windows. And the time clock, still glowing in the darkness, waiting for me. I stumbled to my feet. Every bone in my body hurt. I dragged myself to the clock, nearly crawling. 5:59 a.m. I slammed my hand down on the button. Nothing. Again. Harder. Still nothing. A new message appeared on the screen. Access denied. My heart dropped. 6 a.m. flashed on the screen, and the air around me dropped 20 degrees. I was too late. I had failed Rule 6. The walls began to groan, the lights pulsed red, and the screen flickered. One final message appeared. You stay. The words "you stay" didn't just flash, they burned, glowing red on the screen, dripping like blood. My breath turned to smoke in the freezing air as I stumbled backward. The lobby was groaning like it was alive, and the walls, they weren't walls anymore, they were moving, shifting, breathing. The ground beneath my feet trembled, and the floor tiles cracked in jagged lines that pulsed with a sickly red glow. I turned, looking for the front doors, but they were gone, replaced by a black void that pulsed with whispers. Not just sounds. Voices. Faces. Dozens of them smearing across the black like wet paint, crying, screaming, begging. Some were missing eyes, others had mouths sewn shut, and one of them looked just like me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then the floor dropped out. No warning, just gone, like the resort had decided if I wasn't going to leave, it would swallow me whole. I fell into darkness, weightless, endless, until I hit something wet, cold, sticky. I choked and gasped as I surfaced, splashing, thrashing. I was back in the pool. But it wasn't water. It was black and thick and wrong. It clung to my skin like oil and stank of rot. I tried to swim, but the surface rippled like it was resisting me, holding me there. Then I saw her, the woman from the pool. But she wasn't standing this time. She was floating. Arms spread, eyes open, face inches from mine. She didn't blink, didn't breathe. She just drifted there, dead and watching. Her mouth opened, and this time, she spoke clearly. Welcome. I screamed and kicked with everything I had, finally breaking free from the black ooze. I clawed my way up the slick metal ladder, my hands slipping, legs numb. I collapsed onto the tile floor beside the pool, soaked and shaking, coughing up gobs of that awful liquid. But the resort didn't let go. The air was different now, too still, too quiet, like time itself had frozen. I looked around. The pool deck was empty. No chairs, no umbrellas, no exit. Only one door remained directly across from me. It was open, barely, and behind it, a hallway I'd never seen before. The lights inside flickered, revealing twisted, warped walls that looked like they'd been melted and stretched like wax. I didn't want to go, but I had to. There was nowhere else left. I stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind me. The hallway went on forever. The deeper I walked, the more the carpet beneath my feet turned from soft to wet, then warm, then breathing. I looked down. I wasn't walking on carpet. I was walking on skin, human skin, stitched together in patchwork sheets, covered in bruises and old burn marks. Veins pulsed beneath the surface, and with every step, I felt the hallway twitch. I gagged but forced myself forward. Ahead, a door waited, old, wooden, and rotting. Carved into it, just above the doorknob, were the words, Room 409. No, no, no. I'd already done this. Rule 2. Knock twice. No more, no less. Then leave. But this wasn't 3 a.m. anymore. Time didn't exist here now. The rules were changing. I turned to run. The hallway behind me was gone. Just a wall of flesh. Throbbing. Wet. Waiting. I had no choice. I stepped up to the door, raised my hand, knocked once, twice. The sound echoed like cannon fire in the silence. I turned to leave, but the doorknob twisted. The door opened, and I heard it, my own voice. "Hey," it said, cheerful. "Where have you been? Everyone's waiting." I froze. The rule screamed in my head. If you hear your own voice from inside, run and don't look back. But I couldn't move. The voice kept talking, softer now, closer. "You've already broken the rules," it whispered. "Why stop now?" A hand reached through the gap. My hand. But the skin was wrong, gray, rotten, fingers too long, nails black and cracked. I stumbled back, but the hand grabbed me. It yanked me into the room before I could scream. And inside was me, but not me. My face, my voice, my body, twisted, stretched too thin, eyes hollow, mouth too wide. It smiled. "I've been waiting for you." The room behind it was lined with mirrors, and in each one, I saw myself doing different things, clocking in, clocking out, cleaning rooms, following the rules, breaking them, dying, living. But in none of them did I leave. I was trapped in every single one, forever working, forever surviving, but never escaping. "I'm you," it said, the version that stayed. I backed away, trembling, heart pounding against my ribs like a drum. "You don't have to fight anymore," it whispered. "Just give in. Join me. Stay." And for a moment, I almost did, because I was so tired, so cold, so afraid. But then I saw one mirror, just one, cracked in the corner, and in that reflection, I saw myself running. I wasn't safe. I wasn't free. But I was still trying, and that was enough. I screamed, tore free from the other me's grip, and ran. I sprinted past the mirrors, the whispers, the hands reaching out. I didn't know where I was going, but I ran until I hit another door. This one was metal, rusted, chained. I didn't care. I grabbed the chains and pulled with everything I had. They snapped. The door burst open, and light, real light, poured through. Sunlight, blinding, warm, impossible. I dove through and hit the sand, the real beach, waves crashing nearby, birds in the sky, the resort behind me, gone. No building, no signs, just jungle and ocean. I was back. Somehow, I had escaped. I rolled onto my back, staring at the morning sun, crying, laughing, alive. But as I lay there, catching my breath, my watch buzzed. I looked at it. Only one thing showed on the screen. Next shift begins 12 a.m. I stared at the screen, heart thudding in my chest. My laughter died in my throat. No, I wasn't going back. I escaped. I survived. This wasn't fair. This wasn't how it worked. I tore the watch off my wrist and hurled it into the ocean. It skipped once across the surface and vanished beneath the waves. I didn't care. I didn't care what the screen said. I wasn't going back to that place. I wouldn't let it take me again. I was free, wasn't I? I pulled myself to my feet. My legs trembled like they didn't belong to me. The sun was high now, warm, real. I squinted toward the tree line, hoping to see some sign of life. A road, a car, a person, anything. But the jungle just stared back, still, breathing. I walked. I didn't know for how long. Hours, maybe. My clothes dried stiff against my skin, still sticky with the black slime from the pool. My feet bled from sharp roots and jagged rocks, but I didn't stop. I had to get away, far from the beach, far from the resort, far from everything that place had twisted. Eventually, I found a road, paved, cracked, overgrown, but real. Hope sparked again in my chest. I followed it until I reached a gas station. The lights were flickering, the place looked abandoned, but the door creaked open when I pushed it. Inside there was a man behind the counter. He looked up and smiled. "You're early," he said. My blood froze. "What?" He tapped a small register. Behind him a glowing clock read 11:41 p.m. My stomach dropped. "No," I whispered. He nodded toward the dusty drink fridge. "You've got 19 minutes, better hydrate." I turned and ran. Outside, the jungle was gone. The beach was gone. The gas station was gone. I was back in the lobby of the resort, right where I had started. Same tile floor, same chandelier swaying slightly, even though there was no wind. The scent of plumeria and rot hung in the air like perfume over a corpse. The digital clock above the check-in desk read 11:52 p.m. "No," I breathed. No. The front doors were locked, the elevator open, waiting. I backed away. I wasn't ready for this. But the watch was back on my wrist, buzzing softly. I looked. "Welcome back. Begin night shift." And beneath that, "New rule pending." My stomach twisted. The resort was changing the rules. I ran down the hallway, past the front desk, past the framed photos of smiling families that all had the same blank eyes, the same wrong smiles. I burst into the break room hoping anyone would be there. But it was empty, except for the message board, where the rules were posted, except now there was a seventh, written in black marker, still dripping like it had just been added. Rule 7. If you see yourself standing still at the end of the hallway, run. That's all it said. No explanation, no warning, just that. I turned, and I saw it. At the end of the hallway, near room 112, a figure, still, staring at me, my height, my build, my clothes, my face, me, but not moving, just standing there, watching, waiting. I turned and bolted the other way, lungs burning, heart clawing its way up my throat. The hallway stretched longer with every step. Doors multiplied on either side, none of them numbered. Some were ajar, some leaking water. One had long blood-red fingernail scratches down the center, like something inside had tried to crawl out. I didn't stop. I couldn't. Behind me, footsteps, not running, just walking. Slow, measured. They echoed perfectly with mine, but half a beat behind. Getting closer. I rounded a corner and smacked into someone. I screamed. But it was Ava, the front desk girl from my first night. Except her eyes were sewn shut, and her lips moved. "No matter how fast you run," she whispered, voice like cracking glass, "you always end up back where you started." Her head twisted completely around as she pointed behind me. I turned. The hallway was gone. The elevator stood open again, inside. It didn't lead to any floors, just darkness. And a sound. A slow, wet breathing. I backed away, but Ava grabbed my wrist, her fingers ice cold. "Time to clock in." She shoved me inside. The doors closed, and the elevator dropped, faster than it ever should. I screamed as the lights flickered. The panel lit up, but now it had a new button, a glowing red 7. I didn't touch it, but it lit on its own. The elevator jerked to a stop. Ding, doors opened. Blackness, and whispers. I closed my eyes, held my breath, stayed perfectly still. I felt it immediately. Hands, dozens of them, sliding across my arms, my back, my face, something cold and wet breathing against my neck. A voice inches from my ear. "You're awake." I almost screamed. Almost, but I kept still, frozen, praying. The whispers got louder, more desperate, more hungry. And then, silence. The hands stopped, the breathing faded. The elevator doors slammed shut, and it rose, slow, painfully slow. When the doors opened again, I was back in the lobby, but not the same lobby. This one was rotting, moss and vines crawling up the walls. The air stank of mold and decay. The desk was on fire. The chandelier was swinging wildly. The clock? 12:59 a.m. I had survived the 7th floor. Barely. But this shift was only beginning. And this time, I wasn't alone. Because across the lobby, behind the front desk, I saw someone else, wearing my uniform, holding the clipboard. They looked up, smiled, and I saw my own face staring back. Again, the same smile as the last time. Only now, they weren't standing still. They were walking toward me. And the clipboard in their hand had 7 rules scratched into it. One by one, they began to tear them off, until only one remained. The newest one. Rule 7. The only one left on the clipboard. My double held it out toward me, smiling like he knew exactly what would happen next. That smile, it wasn't mine. Not really. It was something wearing my face, my skin, like a costume that didn't quite fit right. The corners of its mouth twitched too wide, the eyes too still, too dead. I took a step back. It took one forward. With each footfall, the lights above flickered, and with each flicker, more versions of me began to appear. Down the halls, in the mirrors, in the reflections on the polished lobby floor. All of them watching. Silent, still, waiting. Except for the original. That one kept walking straight toward me, tearing the last rule off the clipboard. And now, there were no rules left. None. I turned and ran. Not knowing where to go, only that I had to get away. I barreled through the side hallway, past the burnt painting of the founders, past the door labeled staff only, that now throbbed like something was breathing behind it. The air felt thick, like walking through water, each step harder than the last. Behind me I could hear footsteps, but not from one person, dozens, all walking in perfect rhythm, matching mine. Then, they stopped. So did I. Silence. I didn't turn around. I knew what I'd see if I did. Instead, I ducked into the nearest room, room 112, and slammed the door shut. Total darkness. Except for a TV in the corner, flickering static. Then, it turned on by itself. No remote, no buttons pressed. The screen buzzed for a moment, then displayed a live feed of me, standing inside room 112, watching the TV. I stumbled back in horror as the version of me on the screen turned its head, but I hadn't moved. The screen me smiled. Then behind him the door began to open. I looked over my shoulder. My real door stayed shut, but on the screen, the door creaked open wider, and then something stepped inside. Not human. Long, pale, bent backward like a broken marionette. Its mouth opened far too wide, splitting up into its cheekbones, revealing more teeth than anything should have. And it placed a single wet hand on my screen self's shoulder. My knees buckled. I screamed. The screen went black, and the door behind me exploded open. But nothing came in, only a sound, the sound of a clock ticking. Loud, slow. Then a voice, deep and bone dry, whispered behind me. "You're late." I ran again, burst back into the hallway just as the resort lights began to strobe. Red, white, red, white. An alarm blared overhead and the floor beneath me began to pulse like a heartbeat. I could feel it in my teeth. And then, the phones started ringing. Every phone in the resort, all at once. Lobby, guest rooms, office lines, Rule 4. Do not answer. Let them ring. But they were so loud. My head throbbed with every shrill note. I sprinted past the front desk, covering my ears, but that didn't help. The sound wasn't just around me, it was inside me. And then, without meaning to, I answered one. My hand just moved. I picked up the lobby phone and pressed it to my ear. Silence. Then, "You were born on a rainy Tuesday. Do you remember the nurse who never blinked?" I gasped. That voice. How did it know that? "You cried when your dog was buried under the oak tree, but something else was buried beneath him. Didn't you feel it watching?" The voice was measured, calm, like a man reading bedtime stories from hell. "She waits for you, in the water, in the dark, in the space between seconds." I dropped the phone, but I could still hear it. Inside my head. The whisper. It wouldn't stop. It won't stop. I staggered backward into the wall, gripping my skull, shaking it like I could rattle the words loose. The whispering grew louder. Then, another knock. From behind me. From the hallway. Rule 1. Do not open the door. But I wasn't near a guest room. I turned slowly. There was a door in the middle of the hallway, a door that hadn't been there before, and the knocking continued. Gentle, polite. I backed away, tears running down my cheeks. The knock came again, harder. Then a voice. Hey, it's Mark from the night shift. Sorry, my keycard isn't working. Can you let me in real quick? I choked. I knew that voice. Mark, the guy who trained me, the one who'd disappeared. Please, he begged. They're chasing me. I need to hide. Just unlock the door. I didn't move, didn't breathe, because Mark had died on my second night. They found his clothes by the infinity pool, but not him. I'll owe you forever, man, the voice said again, softer now. Forever and ever and ever. The door rattled like something massive slammed against it from the other side. Then silence. I backed away, stumbled into the elevator. The doors slammed shut. The panel was lit. Only one button glowing. Room 409. 3 a.m. Rule 2. Knock twice. No more, no less. Ignore the voice, especially if it's my own. I didn't press anything, but the elevator moved anyway. It dinged once and opened onto a hallway bathed in red light. Room 409 at the far end. I stepped out, shaking, fighting every instinct in my body to run. I walked to the door, raised my fist. Knock, knock. I turned to leave, then, come in. A soft voice. Female. Not mine. Not yet. I kept walking, faster. Then the voice changed, shifted, matched mine. Hey, it said, perfectly mimicking me. Don't leave. I just want to talk. I broke into a sprint. I didn't stop until I hit the stairwell, taking the steps 3 at a time, the whisper in my head screaming now, overlapping with the voice from room 409, overlapping with Mark's begging, overlapping with the dead phone, all the voices, all at once, flooding my head, until silence, and a single chime. I turned to the lobby. The sky outside had turned golden. Sunrise. Rule 6. Clock out by sunrise. I checked the time. 6 a.m. I made it. I limped toward the back office, past broken windows, scorched carpet, mirrors still full of moving things that didn't match me. The time clock stood in the corner, buzzing faintly. I reached out, swiped my card. It dinged. The resort exhaled. The lights flickered. The floor stopped pulsing, and outside, the sun rose. I collapsed in the office chair. Alive. Again. But as I sat there, heart slowing, I heard something behind me. Footsteps. And then, a whisper. You forgot to sign out the clipboard. I turned. It was me, again, smiling, holding it out. And now, there were 8 rules. I stared at the clipboard in his hand, my hand, and felt the cold sweat creep down my back. The paper was new, clean, white as bone, and on it, right beneath Rule 7, was a freshly written line in black ink, still glistening. Rule 8. Do not sign the clipboard. The pen was already uncapped, held out toward me. I stepped back. The other me smiled wider, arm extending farther than it should have, elbow bending wrong, like rubber. His head tilted to the side with a sickening pop. His smile never changed. You have to, he said, voice calm and hollow. You worked the shift. You followed the rules. Now sign out, or you'll be on the schedule forever. I looked toward the sunrise. The golden light still poured through the tall windows of the resort lobby. Birds chirped outside. The waves crashed gently against the beach. But inside, it felt like everything had stopped breathing. I clocked out. The thing with my face didn't blink, didn't move. It just stood there waiting, the clipboard now shaking slightly in its hand, as if it was getting impatient or hungry. I turned to run and smacked straight into another me. This one was grinning too, another behind him, and another, all silent, all holding out clipboards, all with 8 rules. I was surrounded, no exit, No escape. I backed into the original one again, feeling his breath now hot against my neck. "You've already broken one rule," he whispered. "You answered the phone." I swallowed hard. "No one ever breaks two," he added, "because no one gets the chance." Then they all moved at once. Clipboards raised, pens out, a swarm of me. I dove under their arms, sliding across the polished marble floor, and scrambled toward the staff stairwell. I slammed the door behind me and took the steps 2 at a time, not stopping even as my lungs screamed and my legs turned numb. I didn't know where I was going, just that I had to keep moving. The whispers started again. Only now they weren't in my head. They were coming from the walls. The concrete began to pulse, like veins under skin. The overhead lights flickered red, then died out completely. I was running blind, but I knew where I was headed. The one place I had never dared to go. The 7th floor. Rule 5. Avoid it at all costs. But I didn't care anymore. I reached the landing between the 6th and 8th floors. No button existed for 7 in the elevator, no signage on the stairwell. But I saw it now. A hallway that hadn't been there before. Narrow, endless, lit by nothing but dim, flickering sconces crawling with spiders. I stepped onto the 7th floor. Instantly, the air dropped to freezing. I could see my breath. The wallpaper peeled like rotting skin. The carpet was wet under my shoes. The walls moved. No sound, but a low hum, like the building itself was vibrating. I remembered the rule. If you end up there, close your eyes, hold your breath, and don't move. I stood still. I shut my eyes. I inhaled once, deeply, and held it. That's when I felt it. Hands cold and bony, touching my shoulders, then my chest, then my face. Something long and wet slithered across my cheek. Fingers tapped against my eyelids, softly at first, then harder, then scratching. They knew. They knew I was awake. Something pressed its forehead to mine. Its breath was cold and wrong and sweet like rotting fruit. It leaned in and whispered, "Sign the clipboard." I couldn't hold it anymore. I gasped. My eyes flew open, and all I saw were faces. Hundreds, all of them mine, screaming silently. Some with no eyes, some with mouths stretched down to their chests. Some stitched shut, some sobbing, all of them holding clipboards, and they rushed me. I screamed and ran, feeling their hands clawing at my skin, tearing my uniform, pulling my arms in every direction. But somehow, I got free. I don't know how. I burst back into the stairwell, slammed the door shut behind me, and ran all the way down to the lobby. The sun was still rising. It hadn't moved, like time had stopped. The lobby was empty, silent. I crawled toward the front doors, but they were gone. No handles, no seams, just endless glass. My reflection stood there, looking back at me from the other side, smiling, clipboard in hand. I turned to the front desk. The schedule board was lit again. Next shift, you. Underneath it, start time, now. And below that, end time, never. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just a job. It was a trap, a loop, a cycle. Each rule a test, each shift a punishment. And the moment you broke one, it never let you go. The whispering came back, louder than ever, pouring from the vents, from the phones, from behind the walls, from inside me. Then, the lobby phone rang again, 4:44 a.m., but it had already rung earlier. The clock was rewinding, starting over, a new shift, a new victim. Unless I ran to the office, the clock-out terminal was still there, but the screen had changed. To exit, someone must replace you. Offer the clipboard. I froze. The clipboard, the reason there were so many of me. They weren't just reflections. They were the ones who signed, who replaced someone else, who escaped by trapping the next. And now, it was my turn. The front door opened. A new hire walked in. Fresh uniform, bright eyes, holding a duffel bag. He waved, smiled. "Hey, I'm supposed to start training tonight, he said. You must be the guy I'm replacing. I stood up, clipboard in hand. My smile stretched a little too wide, and I said, Welcome to the Marriott Resort.